All right. Hello, and thank you for joining us today. Today, we'll be having a short conversation around generative AI for sales. We're going to spend some time talking about the possibilities, what's real, where to start, and just have a dialogue around what we're seeing in the market across different industries, clients, technology partners who are already investing in this space. But maybe what we'll do is we'll start off with a couple quick introductions. My name is Abe Awasthi. I lead our sales transformation offering at Deloitte. I help companies reimagine the experiences that are delivered to customers, to partners, and to sales employees to drive profitable growth. So that includes thinking about the right go-to-market strategy, but also designing and delivering the right selling motions, and increasingly answering the question, how does AI change the customer experience and the sales function? I'm joined today by Teemu Rajala. Teemu, you want to start with a quick intro?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Teemu Rajala. I sit within our customer marketing practice, and I lead large sales transformation programs at the intersection of sales and technology, including generative AI and AI, to create more insight-driven sales organizations for our clients.
Awesome. Thanks, Teemu, for joining me. So maybe we just start with a little conversation here. I think that generally speaking, the idea that AI is going to have far-reaching impacts on our society is something that everybody gets and pretty much is agreed with, right? But one of the things that we believe, and I believe, is that one of the most meaningful and disruptive changes that are going to happen for companies is going to be how organizations interact with customers, and then what that means for the role of sellers. And just think about why. What's the root cause of this? And it's that if you take all of the firmographic, what I know about a company, intent, what are they trying to do, and interaction data, how do we interact with them in all different kind of ways, and that you might have with customers, with partners, between each other, and you apply AI to it, the AI is going to understand the needs and preferences of our customers better than today's sales rep. And that's a really big statement, right? Because it means that the role of the seller changes, how they might engage with customers change, how you unlock value for customers and for organizations could be in new and differentiating ways are available to us. So I guess start with that, Tim. Would you agree with those statements? Disagree? Would you add anything to it? What do you think?
Yeah, the one thing I would add is as we start understanding and our sales organizations and sellers start to understand the end customers better and better, and AI becoming smarter around the demographics, the needs of the end customers, what we're going to be seeing is the traditional way of thinking about how do I engage a customer, how do I design a predefined journey and a sales motion around a specific large enterprise customer versus a small and medium business. That's sort of is going to see a shift from becoming more predefined to becoming more dynamic. And what we mean by that is, the days when, customers are going to take certain predefined actions, whether I'm doing first-time discovery on a product, if I want to have an interaction with the sales rep at a given point in time in my buying cycle, those motions and those preferences are going to be a lot more dynamic. As a customer, I'm going to be engaging with AI virtual sales reps. I'm going to be engaging with the human. And when do I engage with a human or a chatbot, or when do I engage with the website, is going to vary by customer, and it's going to be a lot more dynamic. So customers are going to be able to pick their own experiences more dynamically, which means that the sellers also need to adapt, and sales organizations need to be able to cater for these kind of dynamic sales motions that generative AI and AI is going to enable.
Yeah, so it totally changes this idea of building these static one-way journey maps, right, that represent all your customer interactions. That kind of doesn't make sense anymore in this world. So let's start here and just think about what's happening as people start to deploy this. And one of the challenges that with Gen AI that we see is that we're absolutely still in early stages where the expectations are outpacing the reality where companies are. So the hype around Gen AI is pressuring sales and sales enablement leaders to say they're ready when maybe they aren't all the way, and to set expectations that aren't going to be met. at least not right away. And the risk is that some of these initial efforts are going to fail to deliver on the business outcomes that are being promised. And what we propose is that, and what we're going to walk through today, is how to avoid some of this by building some foundational capabilities while also quickly deploying new capabilities and new opportunities to users. Basically, we want to help to avoid the fall off that you have on the other side of the hype curve and get to the point on the right of this, because we do believe that this can transform your business. And so let's think about why sales leaders are taking note and what they're attempting to get out of this. There's really 4 things. One is, how do we accelerate revenue growth? Whether that's improving how we do solution selling, expanding our cross-sell upsell motions, making our renewals more automated and predictable. 2, and one that everyone's focusing on, is how do we make our sellers more productive to reduce the administrative burden and essentially scale disproportionately. How do we enable sales organizations to do more with less? 3, enabling sellers to ramp faster. I mean, just the amount of churn you have in a sales organization, the ability to get people understanding your product, your customers, what they need, and how to get to them faster, massively changes the opportunity. And then lastly, and the one that's most interesting to me, is how can we understand our customers and what they need and their preferences better to tailor how we interact with them? And what are the unique customer experiences that are possible now that were not possible without AI and GenAI? So I guess, Tamu, I'll pose this to you. Like, you're out in the market, you're talking to companies, we're starting to deploy solutions. Where do you think sales leaders should begin?
That's a great question, Abe. It's a question that a lot of the sales leaders of our clients ask us every day. Is, listen, I've got so many options, so many tools out there. I'm not sure exactly where I should start with generative AI. I know I should, and I have some goals to use generative AI to drive business growth, to drive productivity. But it's a really hard question to ask, and I think the answer is that there's multiple ways to answer that question. So we'll break it down in the sort of following sections of how to get started. So one of the things we're seeing is, every month there's a brand new tool that gets introduced, whether it's, from an existing technology provider or a lot of startups that have a different tool that will solve some sales use case. In its essence, all of these tools will more or less take a very similar form, and what we consider and what we coin as a sales assistant, and they're really geared towards driving 2 main objectives: increasing efficiencies and productivity of sellers, and creating more informed and insight-equipped reps throughout their sales cycle. So what you see on the slide is sort of, a standard customer journey. So let me point out a couple of examples, talking through from, when a customer first is going through a discovery, or all the way through sort of expansion of an existing customer. What are some of the examples of how generative AI can help the sellers throughout that sales motion? So, for example, when we're first engaging customers, if we put ourselves in the shoes of an inside pre-sales rep, we see a lot of usage of GenAI in recording and transcribing customer calls and really deriving insights out of those customer calls. So great, this is becoming the new norm and is a very popular use case that's quite widely deployed. Really, what's next on that is, okay, how do you take meaningful insights and inform the rep and recommend the next action you should take with that customer immediately or a couple of weeks from now? The other key thing is how do we couple sort of next best action recommendations and create personalized outreach? So we see tools out there that are able to quite effectively create, outbound emails and personalize those. Typically those take in a form of, hey, we don't need email templates anymore. Let generative AI create a personalized email for your customer. Where the next phase in that, in terms of evolution of these tools, is how do we embed really intelligent product recommendations and pricing information into these emails? So hey, I can go and pitch to the client immediately versus talking about generically who we are. Then obviously the other big thing that reps do, typically, before customers make a buy decision, or even if they're existing customers, is there's a lot of time spent on doing research that reps need to do, whether it's, hey, you're a prospect client, I need to research about you, I need to research about the state of the market that you serve, and how do I create a compelling pitch deck, right? Reps spend a decent amount of time creating proposals, or they might create or request for proposals, request for quotes that they send out to their customers. Generative AI can automate a lot of those tasks and start creating more personalized content that could be reviewed by the rep and sent out to the customer. The other big area that is not something that is widely available in the markets that we see as a typical use case, which starts to get more complex, which is really around how do we use AI and generative AI to speed up one of the most difficult processes in the whole sales cycle, which is really how do I get quotes out and how do I get contracts out? Typically, there's a lot of internal processes where you need internal approvals, deal desk approvals, a lot of turnaround and revisions that need to happen. What we're seeing is we can start using generative AI to actually to make recommendations around the optimal product mix, optimal pricing that falls within those deal desk approval frameworks, that we don't have to go through those internal cycles. That way we can speed up the process of getting quotes out, but also they're going to be a lot more meaningful for the customer, and the propensity for them to actually buy that given solution is going to be higher. And then lastly, obviously a big thing is how do we enable reps not only throughout their life cycle, but hey, I've got new reps joining in. How do I, as a unique rep with a specific skill set coming into a specific role, how do I get personalized training content? All reps are still, they're different with different types of skill sets. And what we want to do is how do we drive personalization of that training content without relying on big sales enablement organizations? And that's where GenAI can really help accelerate and create some of that personalized content.
So Teemu, if I may, I feel like one of the things I take away from this is that a lot of this is the work that you do anyway, right? Like this is what it means to engage with a customer, understand who they are, what they need, how to interact with them, how to build a solution that brings them business value, how to create outcomes for them. And what changes is now the tools that I have to do that so much better, right? And so like to your example, prospecting, like just thinking about how typically you would go about trying to understand a customer on a prospecting, you might go to their website, you might see their leadership, you might read their 10K, you might look at their press releases, you might see what interactions you had, and now you can ask a chatbot, and it'll summarize it for you, right? I mean, it's just the ability to take all of that and to tailor make it for you so that you spend your time now engaging with that customer rather than prepping for that engagement just fundamentally changes how many reps you need, how many account managers and account executives, how they engage, how you coach them. And lastly, what I'd say is across all of these use cases, there are technologies you can buy for some of them and some you can't. And how do you actually stitch together an experience that makes sense for your seller and not just throw a bunch of tools at them is something that, sales enablement leaders are going to have to think through.
Yeah, thanks, Abe. The other key thing around that is there's tools out there. There's some custom solutions out there. So if we take a step back and think about, hey, there's a lot of use cases out there where we can apply GenAI that goes beyond just the seller themselves,
right.
But also how do we deploy solutions out onto the market and for our customers directly? How do we use these which is sort of on that top row? How do we also enable our sales operations and enablement organizations to use AI and GenAI to be better at their jobs and drive more productivity out of their jobs? So there's a lot of use cases that can be applied, and it's really hard for sales leaders to decide where do I start. And it's really two dimensions that how sales leaders should think about where to start with GenAI. Number one is what's available out in the market. There are some use cases, there's some technologies that are far out still, and there's not solutions, and the investments to create those solutions are too high. But there are solutions out there that can be immediately plugged in and embedded into the sales process and start seeing that value. The other component is great if I know what the solutions are out in the market. Which use case should I choose then? And that's really comes down to what's the value we want to drive. Where's the biggest opportunity for me to either drive growth, either drive efficiency, productivity of our sales organization? So those are the two key dimensions. Now, if we think about sort of those customer facing solutions that are depicted there on the top row, what we're seeing is, these solutions that are truly just customer facing, they're at the very beginning of their maturity curve. And what we're seeing is there's inherent risk associated with, privacy and security and reliability with deploying customer facing solutions, especially for use cases where you're starting to potentially surface, sensitive pricing information, product recommendations. So naturally, we see a lot of use cases where we have, customer-facing AI chatbots that will help with support questions, for example. But when you think about a true AI-led, AI virtual seller, there's still some security concerns around that. As these models are still at infancy, they hallucinate a little bit. So typically where you start is in your internal use cases. So for your sellers, there's more inherent safety there to deploy and experiment with these solutions internally and minimize any security or trust risks that organizations may have. And also, in the current market, there's a lot more market pressure that sales leaders have to getting more out of sales organizations and their reps. That pushes a lot of that investment, Gen AI investment, into internal sales use cases. So, having said that, there's a couple of ways, as with any technology implementation, that needs to be true when you start on your Gen AI journey. So, number one is defining what your strategy is. And what that really means is, it's important to tie this to your organizational goals and your go-to-market strategy. The second key thing is sort of the components that make up your readiness for being ready to adopt generative AI. And really, it's around, do we have the right processes, the technologies, all these things in place? And then it's about, let's develop a plan and make sure that we have a robust roadmap that we know how we're going to go and deploy and develop against that roadmap. So if we think about sort of those key components, really the top one is, how do I take a generative AI roadmap? How do I think about where I want to go as a sales organization? What are my future sales motions? What are my sales channels? How am I going to go to market in next 3 to 5 years? And how do I want generative AI solutions to shape those motions and those sales channels specifically? How much of it's going to be self-serve led motions? How much is going to go through our channel partners? How much of the sales do we want to drive through our reps? And what is that rep motion really going to look like? Is some of it a lot more AI led? Now, the key things around building blocks around technology and tool selection, sort of there's a couple of key areas that, come down to that is, it's not only about the selection of the given tool, but it's also, do we have internally, are we ready in terms of our processes that we have in place at the moment? These are essentially any technology, including generative AI, needs to be embedded into your current sales processes. Your sales processes need to change along as you start deploying generative AI solutions. But really, one of the key things is also, is the underlying technical and data architecture supportive of Gen AI use cases? These models tend to be very compute heavy, Do we have the right data in place to draw the right insights? Am I getting the right value out of it? But do I also have a scalable architecture that can support multiple different Gen AI use cases in the future? The other big thing that we talk about also is, risk and governance. So, Abe, can you talk a little bit about why risk is important, why risk and trust is really important around generative AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing I think everyone gets when you're talking about generative AI, that hallucination is an issue. There's like two key parts that people get. One is we don't want the AI to hallucinate and to deliver conversations that are in some way put our business at risk or inaccurate. We've seen dealerships create chatbots and put them on their website where the chatbot starts to recommend cars from a different vendor instead of their own, right? So you definitely don't want hallucinations. The other is you don't want data breaches. So how you leverage and use data and who gets access to that data is really sensitive. But I think above and beyond that, when you're talking about the customer domain, there's a human element of trust that's really important. The more transactional the sale and the more less complex the customer, the more likely you're going to have human-like digital interactions in the future. Customers are going to expect to know that they're interacting with a digital person and how they get to a human, and that transparency is going to be really important. Two, even sellers, like there are lots of conversational AI capabilities and lots of capabilities to pull in all the interaction data so that you can actually generate the AI. And it's really important to think about the human element of trust and how then you deploy these tools, how you communicate, what transparency you bring to it, the order that you deliver them in. All of that's really important. It's also why it's important to think about the experience that you're delivering against a persona. If I'm a solution engineer or I'm an account executive in the enterprise space, what kind of actions do I take? What are the jobs that I do? How is AI going to help me along the way? And am I stitching together a solution that's connected, or am I just throwing, use this tool for this one and this tool for that one, and I just deploy them out hoping people will use it? The more you do the latter, the more you're going to struggle with trust. So can't be underemphasized that this should be a part of the program as you think about it. Maybe what we'll do here is close talking about readiness. So if you use the QR code, folks, there's a readiness calculator. I think you fill in some basic information, you get access to a readiness calculator. It's actually pretty good. It's focused on marketing organization. You'll see the word marketing as you click on it. But a lot of the foundational things that you need to be ready and to assess your own readiness are the same across marketing and sales and service. So I would recommend taking a stab at this. And then thinking about your own strategy against the things that we've talked about. Have you thought about the capabilities? Have you thought about the experience against a persona lens? Do you understand the technology and architecture implications of where you're headed? Because there are also cost implications associated with your LLM strategy and your technology strategy in terms of having per user costs for your sales organization and even partners, which could be massive. So I think it's really important to think about the underlying data, the experience you want to deliver, the technology that's going to support that, and then how do you roll it out with trust? Hopefully this will help get you started. So maybe we close there for today. Thanks everybody for joining. We love to talk about this, so would love for you to reach out. We're easy to get a hold of and would love to continue the conversation.
Thank you.